and welcome back to another edition of Money in Motion. Uh, did some graphic design yesterday,
Yes,
so
look
some
at
neat stuff.
CJ.
Um, Liberal arts degree, very very useful these days. So
Hey, I like it. It adds a little flair, and I like this new layout we got here. But lots to discuss today. FOMC Day, as the title implies, FOMC Day is here. So of course, we got to talk about that. But first, good morning and great day to everyone. Ross, hope you're doing well. Keith, nice move in Google. Yep, I will be talking about that shortly. Um, what are you laughing about? And then beyond that, CJ, it does seem like we're seeing some positive price action in the in some of the major indices. So looking like we're set to see a bullish day into FOMC, but of course we all know Jerome Powell can easily throw a monkey wrench into those plans. But anything you'd like to start off today's show with, my friend?
yeah, I mean, 25 bip hike, probably get a little sell off.
Yeah.
No hike, obviously, probably shorts are all forced to cover in that particular instance. Yeah, we'll see. Expect it probably to be hawkish, but I view any dip really in the next week or two as just like future buying opportunities. Something that I've been watching and just checking out a lot lately is just Russell. Out of all the indices, this has really shown a lot of strength this morning. You see things, NASDAQ trying to bounce back a little bit here, but everything else is basically red. The Dow, on the other hand, I've been seeing a lot of posts on social media. Not that it really matters. I guess it does to a certain extent, but what is this? 12 to 13 straight. If we won today, or if Dow closed up today, that would be the 13th green day or positive day in a row for the Dow. I think that's only happened like 4 or 5 times in history.
Wow.
So I see a lot of people talking about that, but I mean, it's a similar level of an uptrend. I mean, you have one day here where you go down, 70 basis points. So I don't think the statistic is that meaning. Obviously you could get a little bit of a pullback in the interim and see some volatility with FOMC. But, like I said earlier, I think a lot of dips here are probably interesting buying opportunities. Russell, we'll see where this closes today, but I think we definitely have some potential to make a new high in terms of the reaction and what we see in FOMC today. We could see a new high if things are dovish, but of course, if things are hawkish as well, I assume risk assets will kind of sell off across the board and probably give us an interesting buying opportunity in maybe some stuff. But I don't want to jump the gun too much just yet. But that's what I'm seeing out of the major indices in terms of like strength. But like to get into a lot more as the show goes on. But just want to pass back to you, Monte, first.
Thanks, CJ. Yeah, good stuff there. And one thing that's worth mentioning, I mean, everything is kind of flat right now. It seems like people are eagerly awaiting and just kind of, sidelining themselves into FOMC. But I want to talk about the DXY real quick because it is looking like it could be set for, reversal continuation. This candle in itself, wasn't enough to convince me that, maybe the dollar is going to show some weakness into FOMC and we are going to see, risk on assets pump. But now today that we're getting this continuation, I think that tells us a little bit more about, what exactly we could see in the coming days. I think that now that we have 2 days of negative price action in the DXY, heading into FOMC, this is going to be one of the most important things to watch in terms of, are we risk on, are we risk off? Right now, we're kind of flat leaning with a risk on bias slightly, largely because of, many of the stocks that are pumping big on earnings. And even things like Coinbase, looking like it's going to be run up. People are going to try and run this one up into earnings. That's something we discuss on Trading Rebellion. but that is definitely a possibility as people trying to run this up into earnings, especially now that uh, Google has, outperformed so well after earnings. Um, you may see people try and run up these stocks into earnings, especially if we don't get a 25 point rate hike today, or even if we do, we still could see that risk on price action. I think it's all contingent on what Powell says afterwards and kind of the rhetoric that he uses. So, um, yeah, that's my kind of broad overview. But anything in particular, CJ, that you'd like to discuss in terms of trade setups? I know you um, have been watching the softs this week. They've been making some big moves. The beans.
Not the ones I've held in my
that's
bag or whatever.
that's the way it
Um,
goes. That's
Not magic beans this week.
yeah.
Soybean oil was the only magic beans I ever had in the last few weeks. I want to talk actually about Snapchat just for a minute here because I think it's really funny.
Well, I think it's interesting too. You made a good point in the community Discord, but go ahead.
Yeah, let's just look at the last like 4 earnings. I
Yeah.
saw somebody put out a tweet. They were joking. They're like, Warren Buffett said the key to wealth is selling Snap before earnings and buying it back the next day. Do that forever, and you'll make tons of money. Anyways, we have
He didn't.
earnings all the way going back to, let's see, July of last year, fell about 39%, proceeded to rally from about $10 to then 12.8 more specifically. Then we go up ahead into October earnings. That was a drop of 28% as well. Goes back from 7 rallies to 11 or 12 roughly. This one we were already in the midst of an uptrend. Saw a decline of about 10% decline, and within 2 days, make it all back. And then we go ahead towards what is this, April of 23, and we have a decline of 17%, kind of like what we're seeing today, honestly, with that massive gap down. It takes a couple days to stabilize. Then you see kind of a rebound in the market, and we rallied from 8 all the way up to 13 or almost 14. And this morning, we have another drop following earnings, which they actually beat, but are now down 19%. So, I'm not jumping into this one today per se. I think, I'd like to ideally let it stabilize, maybe like, how it was played in like May, wait a couple days, let the dust from earnings kind of settle. And then if there is a, global risk on, or just equities are holding up and looking decent and continue their trend higher, then yeah, Snap is probably going to like do what it did the past 4 or 5 times. But it's not something I like to jump in the exact same day. It's something that I would like to just add to the watch list and kind of, keep on the radar for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like at the very least, it's good for a move back up to the moving average. Pretty much every time, after earnings, we've seen that sort of price action. But I agree with you. I think it's best to give it a day, let the dust settle after the earnings, especially with today being FOMC. That's kind of a unique instance of earnings lining up with another catalyst of FOMC for Snap. I think that could lead to potentially more downward price action or just more general de-risking. But eventually I do kind of want to buy that just based on that premise. I know Warren Buffett didn't actually say that, but he very well may have, because that's a brilliant trading strategy. But anyways, you want to move on to some more crypto native stuff. Bitcoin hasn't really shown much price action at all. Kind of trading flat.
It feels like we're in 2019, about to
Right.
go into 2020. I mean, it's the 2023, 2024 kind of historic time series. And I think Ben Cohen actually published this chart initially. I'd seen it a couple of weeks back. But if you basically just take the averages of what Bitcoin's done during this particular time and its halving cycles being, a year or maybe even less than a year away from its next halving. What are we looking at? Like May of 2024?
Yeah. So, yeah, we're about a year and a half away.
The one thing that I do really like about the stock to flow chart, and I think this is important to just understand where we're at in terms of like a macro view.
Wow. Talk about something that we haven't mentioned in quite a while, the stock to flow chart. I'm excited to see where we're at in terms of, distance from the next halving.
I think trading is very important, not only just looking at like price levels, but also having a stop loss or kind of a price target based on time, not necessarily like price. Because obviously everybody's price target in 21 was 100K, but we spent a certain amount of time there where it's like, all right, we've been, hyperbolic or parabolic for a long time now. Everybody's in the market. So you kind of look at it based on like a time based thing. So, I view this current price action and trajectory kind of similar to what we saw in 2016. Just kind of a very slow grind. It looks like a very easy hold, when you zoom back and look at the decade long chart, but there's pullbacks in here. There's long and boring consolidation phases, and alts, in many cases, they bled during those times. Last thing I want to do is just go to, what the hell? Okay.
Oh.
Anyways, here, I'll get the tweet in a minute. Anyways, not to pick on Spencer Schiff or anything, but this tweet I'm about to bring up is like the epitome of where I think we are in terms of like the boringness of the current market cycle. But Monte, while I bring that up, any take you have on kind of Bitcoin and current market dynamics?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the stock to flow chart, I mean, we're in that blue zone, which historically has been a good buying opportunity, but only if you have a very long time preference and you're not using perpetual futures with a high amount of leverage. Because during this part of the market, we see a lot of the money, shaken out and transferred from, retail traders that are trying to trade perpetual futures into the larger, more sophisticated traders. We talked about it yesterday. The problem is there's really no new capital coming in, right? It's all the same traders trading against each other. In the Tulip Bull Mania video, CJ did a nice job editing it, and he put one picture in there, and it was like the original ape meme. It was like the picture of these noble people dressed up, but they're monkeys dressed in like noble clothes, and they're trying to buy tulips because people were literally aping into the trade. And I feel like, that's kind of the point where we're at now with crypto. It's just like everyone is just competing against each other, and just with these perpetual futures, you've seen all these weird moves with things like OGN and then WorldCoin, of course. And this is just a typical bear market, sideways, boring, like BS market that you have, in this point of the market cycle or Bitcoin's, halving cycle. But that being said, like I pointed out, historically, even though we've made, a big move up this year already, when we're in that blue zone, that's a good time to buy. And, if you have that longer term time preference, I think buying Bitcoin and just putting it in cold storage is a great idea, or not even putting it in cold storage anymore because I don't trust Ledger. I just keep it on a Bitcoin Core wallet. But, and also with the growth of these crypto companies like Coinbase and like Riot and like Mara, I mean, they've grown significantly this calendar year. That money, I think, will eventually start to flow more towards Bitcoin as we get more legitimate on ramps for those institutions that want exposure to Bitcoin. Clearly, they want exposure to the space, but they're just trying to do it through a different vehicle rather than, buying Bitcoin outright, because that's a bit risky.
Monte's back in the city when you start hearing the ambulance take over his audio.
Oh yeah, I tried to power through it, but it did went right by my building.
All right, I got the tweet ready now. So basically everything that Monte was just describing. I mean, really the whole, don't lose money trading the range here or just getting chopped up until Bitcoin really starts trending nicely and there's like easy opportunities to make money. Or I shouldn't say easy, but I'll say favorable. If I was a lot better at saving money, maybe I'd do that. My whole net worth is basically like my iPhone, my clothes. At one point, I had savings in Bitcoin, but I had to sell that to cover some expenses. But honestly, I don't really care about making an effort to save money in this point in my life. A year ago, I was so obsessed with Bitcoin that it caused me a lot of stress and hurt in my personal life because I was constantly worried about me not having enough Bitcoin. I almost dropped out of college just to work as much as possible to buy as much BTC as possible. And I'm super glad I didn't go down that road. So now I'm just enjoying how I've had a huge burden lifted off my shoulders since I'm not interested in Bitcoin anymore. What happens if Bitcoin goes to 100K and comes back? Like, dude, you're just going to have probably double the burden because you're going to be mad at yourself you didn't hold. But that's, and I'm not trying to pick on an individual, right? That is the collective markets. Like I can feel it myself getting exhausted through this thing and getting frustrated and wanting to just throw in the towel. But that's just part of kind of the market cycle. And we've seen it many, many times. It's like you're so far into this bear market. I shouldn't even say bear market, but you're so far into this like boring price action that like, I'm not leaving now.
Yeah, right. If you would have left, it would have been, at the start of the year or something, or, back in December. But if you've stuck with this range bound price action, it's been very difficult to trade, then, you may as well stick with it at this point. But yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting tweet. I hadn't seen that. But I think a lot of people felt that way in 2021. And in our interview with the Flow Horse, he talked about how in bear markets, one thing that's super important to him is just like maintaining his mental health and maintaining his physical health as well. And I think that is something that's super overlooked because you will get burnt out. Like if you try and just like trade and just focus on the markets constantly, especially in these range bound markets, and you're trying to trade with perpetual futures and you're trying to catch a move from the bottom of the range to the top of the range, like, you're basically flipping a coin in a lot of cases. And that is stressful. It's like you're gambling, really. And that's not what I like doing. I like to wait for a more clear secular trend to emerge. And once that happens, then I enter with conviction and with a lot of capital. And I'm just not seeing that yet. So, until then, what?
I was just gonna say Soros and Druckenmiller are not like sitting on trading. They're not. That's not how they made billions. And like, that's not how they did it. They didn't look at the 15-minute chart and scalp. They said, "All right, I like this idea. Let's put 200% of our fund into it and hold it and hope it goes up. And if we were wrong, we'll lose 200 to 400 basis points." And that's how you do it. And I see those secular massive bets emerging in Coinbase and things like other potential Bitcoin equities, altcoins when the time is right. I think it's a little early still. But those are the massive bets that, I want to put 80 to 90% of my net worth in. But right now, it doesn't really, I'm kind of waiting to scale up. But just like what you said about gambling earlier, it's more like, to me, you go into and you're sitting at a poker player and or you go sit at a poker table in Vegas and it's just all regulars. It's all the professional poker play. It's like that scene in Rounders where, you go and you sit down and you're playing against only the best of competition.
You
like
can't identify. If you can't identify the sucker, then you are the sucker.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm messing up the show today. Okay. But yeah, it's like, you don't want to be playing against the best competition, and that's basically what you're doing in crypto right now. I mean, if you're trying to trade. So, wait for the old grandma, the old unsuspecting, tourists to come in and take their money. Like, it's not, I know that's going to sound really bad out of context, but you get the point. Wait till things are more easier, and at least I'm going to wait till there's more money in the space and more new capital flowing into the alts. Because right now it's like, you're sitting at a table with 5 or 10 of the best poker players and you're trying to beat them all, and it's difficult. So
yeah, so wait till the old elderly grandma sits down and then you steal her money. CJ said it.
it's literally the one scene from Rounders where
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. If you're sitting at the table, that's where we're at right now. We need more market participants. And they will come back. It's just not time right now. But I do one thing I think is very important right now, and has been throughout various bear markets in Bitcoin, is looking for what's resilient, right? And then figuring out what you want to make a big bet on when the time is right. Like, I don't want to wait until things start moving and then decide. Like, I'm preparing now to deploy capital. And one thing that I talked about yesterday, I believe on Trading Rebellion, was just ETH's resilience. And I think ETH is worth maybe upping my allocation in my portfolio just because of the resilience it's shown relative to Bitcoin, and the fact that it's undergone such a significant change in the way it operates in the last year. I'm willing to take a pretty big bet on that. I think that perhaps allocating a bit more than I have been so far in terms of like portfolio percentage towards ETH might be something that is worth consideration this time around because of the resilience we've seen so far to the
let me
downside.
ask you this.
Go
Would you
ahead.
sell all of your Bitcoin and put it into
No,
looks like it's bought, or the Bitcoin maxis have a death of ETH party? That's the time to buy all ETH. But would you ever do that? What is that something you've thought about?
no, no. I mean, listen, I'm not trying to like capture every ounce of beta in this market. Like, I have exposure to Bitcoin because I believe in it in the long term. I believe in the philosophy of it. I believe in what it stands for, and I think it's going to be here for at least the rest of my lifetime. And as more and more young people get money and become the generation like below me is so technologically inclined that it makes sense for them to adopt like a digital currency. And I think that Bitcoin will be huge amongst future generations, and that's a bet that I'm willing to make. And even if ETH outperforms, like, that's okay. um I still just want exposure to Bitcoin because I believe that in the long run, that's going to be where we have, you, you know, ultimately it's like the safest bet in the crypto space.
Yeah, I think about all of those kids coming in, but I don't know if they'll buy Bitcoin. What if they just buy Obama, Sonic, Inu, whatever?
All that money eventually flows back into Bitcoin. We've seen it 1,000 times, right? All that money, like you said, it goes to the sharks or the
Yeah,
whales. The
I
whales, as we
suppose
call
you're
them in
right.
crypto. So
I suppose you're right. Yeah, in terms of trade setups intraday, are you going into anything with? Do you have any open positions into FOMC?
only thing I still have open that I'm planning on closing before FOMC is Google. I will be closing that one out before end of day, but that is about it. How about you? Anything that you have on right now that you are going to hold through FOMC?
Yeah, here I'm gonna bring some charts up very briefly,
Yeah, go for it.
but it's just silver and coffee, and I've been thinking about buying Russell, but have been hesitant.
Oh, also, what about Lido?
Oh yeah, I mean that thing's trading like it got subpoenaed or something. It's horrible. Yeah, I'm not out of it yet. I said the stop loss on that one would be like 190. If it closes below 190, then we'll consider getting out. But I feel like it just has to kind of run a little bit here. But yeah, I mean alts have been trading like when Bitcoin gets boring, alts just bleed, and so I guess that's the current meta we're experiencing with Lido. Um, Still long-term bullish, but just like I said, this interim weekly price action has just been horrible to trade. Hasn't been a lot of easy opportunities. Silver's interesting. Yesterday had a nice little bit of a rebound. You've kind of seen this interesting breakdown between dollar and metals. They're no longer really inversely correlated. I think you have dollars kind of trading a lot more off of the rates situation. So metals haven't really followed the dollar trade as much from an inverse perspective, that is. But this is something that's, I think is interesting. It's fallen pretty decently here in the last 15 minutes. But, you have the structure of a lower high beginning to form. The reason why I looked at silver from the beginning of the week is because I think 77% of IG sentiment servant clients were like long. So you had an amazing asymmetry in positioning. Everybody bought this dip. And, that doesn't mean anything if we can continue to rally and, risk assets and silver gets bid up following FOMC. But if we sell off and risk does not rally, there are a lot of longs from, here, from here, and from here who, might have to puke if we keep going down. And that might be a nice long liquidation event, in which case, it makes up a good short and a decent hedge against any volatility in FOMC. The other thing that I've been trading around, well, not trading around, just holding it. I was looking to buy into the breakout, and then we just haven't really gotten much follow through. So haven't been stopped out of this yet, but it is in a loss. We'll see. I mean, maybe this turns into a higher low and we see this level, which had previously been, resistance at 160 flip to new support. But, either way, you want these short squeezes to show you something. And this is just, I don't want this just to be a rejection off the 20 smooth moving average and then we bleed into new lows. Like that would be a nightmare. Obviously, it wouldn't wreck my trading account. It would be, 60, 70 bips and we move on. But, I want this thing to start squeezing rather soon. I'd say if we close maybe red tomorrow, then, I'd probably get out of this position and just cut it. Because, when you're trading the COT approach, you want to see the squeeze happen right off the bat. Dollar's a good example of this. You didn't have a day where momentum stalled. Every single day was like a very violent squeeze. So that's typically what you want to look for. And, maybe we'll get that in silver. Maybe we'll get that in coffee. Who knows? Russell, I like, though, because, you have this nice support. It looks nice on the 15-minute. We are at the top of the range, but very decent possibility if there's no basis point increase today that we just rally into new highs and, take out the 2000, maybe even 40 level in Russell. So just something to keep in mind there. If I was looking to kind of hedge that silver short with a long in the equity market, it would probably be through Russell, but I haven't really done anything yet. But the reason why I've selected these assets, namely silver, coffee, and Russell, is just because they have an imbalance in positioning still. There are more shorts than longs in Russell. There are way more shorts from the trend followers in coffee than there are longs. And the same kind of goes for silver. So yeah, those are my positions, kind of how I'm thinking about things. Probably not too exciting this week. But yeah, anything else you'd like to
Last thing
before we wrap up?
Yeah, just last thing I'll say is I am in a Lido position. Entered it yesterday. Obviously, like you said, trading like it got subpoenaed. I like that. I think I'm going to start using that. But I think we're approaching a critical level where we could plausibly see a bounce. If we were to bounce, I think this is where it happened at about 1.86 or so, right around this level. And if we break through this level, I'd consider thinking about closing out the trade. I know it's not, it hadn't reached the stop loss yet, but the fact that it's not able to maintain a lower high, or if it doesn't maintain a lower high, then I would be a bit concerned. But I still do like the structure of this, in the sense that we have this ascending formation here. It's still trending positive, and I think we could see at least a move back up towards the $2 level. The $2 and 35-cent level would ultimately be my target for this one. But you put a nice insight out in our Discord community, so if you're a member of that, you probably already have seen that trade. You might already be in it with us, but look at that for specific entry, exits, and stop losses. But overall, even though it's trading like it got subpoenaed, I still think that in the long term, or not even in the long term, in the in the medium term here, we could see some decent price action out of Lido and a move back up to that 235 level, and that'd be a really nice little profit there. But that's all I got, CJ. Anything else you'd like to add for the day?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see with Lido. But yeah, it's pretty dark here in Chicago. Storming
I just had a
bit this morning.
severe thunderstorm alert on my phone. So
The one day I make a tea time.
Oh no. It was beautiful yesterday all day. Oh man. Well,
All right, guys. Well, appreciate you tuning in. As always, please like and subscribe. That always helps us out a bunch to show this to as many folks as possible. And check out tradethechain.com, link below, for a 14-day free trial. Not only will you get our Discord channel and trade alerts, but also a plethora of sentiment indicators and hopefully some sentiment indicators on equities soon, but don't want to get too ahead of myself. I hope you guys have a great day. Good luck in FOMC with your positions, and we'll be back, or actually got our member webinar. So members, will see you around noon today. But for everyone else, we'll see you back here same time tomorrow. Take care.